few days ago I was in a Facebook RV group and the question was being asked, what appliances do you have in the RV? And that brings us here. So I thought I would do a quick rundown of what appliances we keep in the RV kitchen. You can give me your feedback and comments. I'm sure you have others, but this is what we use every day in the RV kitchen. Appliances that make water hot. This little Nespresso maker is really convenient for us for a couple of reasons. One is it sits almost permanently up here on our counter. It's got a really small footprint and it's super convenient. Now I've got a lot of coffee making equipment which I can go through at some other time. I know the capsules can be recycled, which we do when we take them back to the Nespresso store, so it's actually not as bad in the environment as some of the other systems. And I do still have stovetop espresso makers, and I've got maybe 5 or 6 different ways to make coffee because I'm a bit of a coffee hound. Next to that, we've got our little kettle. This is actually just a standard Amazon brand kettle. It's turned out to be about the right size. I think this takes just over 1 3/4 liters. It works really well, and one of the things that we often do is if I'm heating water for a pot, I don't typically use the propane to bring it to the boil. I will boil water in the kettle and then just use that hot water right out of the kettle. It saves on time and propane. Next on the list are appliances that we cook with. We've got a Ninja air fryer, particularly like the footprint on this one. It's a good size for us. Does everything that we need. We also have a little tiny waffle iron. Again, great footprint for us, but this was a gift from our niece one Christmas. We thought at the beginning when we first received it that this was going to be one of those kind of Christmas gifts that you just put on the shelf, but we use this on a regular basis. It makes fantastic little waffles. That comes out at least once a week now, I think. The next category of appliances are things that we mix and chop with. So we've got a very basic little mixer. We don't use this very often. It's not a heavy duty. I think we picked this up from Amazon, but a very basic little mixer. Mini food processor. I did start off with a full-size food processor, but the bowls are just too big for 2 people most of the time, and this is a much better form factor to go into our cupboard. Bullet. We use this a lot to begin with. Don't use it as much now, but it is still super useful if you just need to blend something up very, very quickly. And if you don't have room for a big blender, I highly recommend a Bullet. And then last is our Blendtec. There's 2 main products. You can either get the Blendtec or the Vitamix. There's certainly a lot of others out there on the market. In a professional kitchen, you're going to find a Vitamix, and I think a Blendtec is a really good substitute. Can't emphasize a good blender enough. So I've got a couple of other appliances here which don't seem to be too common in RVs. This is a electric plate warmer. It's really handy to have. I just put it off to the side, pop a couple of plates in there, and they are nice and hot to serve food on. Hot food deserves a hot plate, so this takes care of that when we don't have an oven. And then this is a sous vide. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's a cooking method where you put food in a water bath, and I use this a fair amount. It replaces a slow cooker for us and is far more precise, and honestly I think has a lot more versatility. We'll be doing a completely separate piece on the sous vide because I think it's just a really interesting piece of equipment to have in your RV kitchen. Last but not least is the Food Saver. This is a vacuum sealer. If you use a sous vide, you really need to have one of these. You can do it without, but it's a little more tricky. And I also use this to store food in the freezer. For some reason, supermarkets seem to sell things in 3s and 5s, and when there's only 2 of you, I'm always putting some piece of protein up in the freezer, and this does a really nice job. It keeps it compact, saves you getting freezer burn.
With all these appliances, it's worth talking about electrical load. We only have a 30 amp system in our RV. You may have 50, but it's pretty easy to load up the electrical system, especially if you've got a microwave. Most appliances are rated in watts. Watts equals volts times amps. So at 110 volts and 30 amps, the most watts we have is around 3,300. The water heater and air conditioner can take up a good chunk of the available power, and that leaves enough room for a kettle, as is 1500 watts, a blender, which is 1800 watts, or maybe a hairdryer, but not all of them at once. To make sure I don't trip the main breaker while I'm cooking, I'll often turn off the water heater or make sure that the AC is not going to come on. So that's everything we have in the RV kitchen that we can plug in. If you've got other appliances or some ideas around what could be useful, feel free to put them in the comments below.